You need to leave. Tonight. That's what my father said. No trial, no questions. Just lies they chose to believe. My brother said I stole from them. My sister said I tried to seduce her fiancé. No one asked me if it was true. They just packed my bag, pointed to the door, and shut it behind me. What they didn't know was that I was pregnant, with twins, and the man they said would never stay, he did. 5 years later, I stood at the helm of a biotech company they couldn't ignore. And they were bankrupt. But I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to reclaim what they tried to erase. If your family has ever believed the worst of you without asking for your side, drop a truth in the comments. If not, type lucky. Because silence isn't weakness. It's just the sound right before you rebuild. I don't even know who you are anymore, Dad said. You need to leave. Tonight. The words didn't hit me like a slap. They landed quieter, like the soft click of a door locking from the other side. I stood there, still holding my keys in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other. Cheap red from a gas station, meant as a peace offering. I hadn't even put my purse down yet. It was supposed to be dinner. That's what the text said. Family night, 6:30, just us. No smiley face, no heart. But at least it was something. I'd convinced myself it was an opening. I was wrong. There was no food, no baked ziti, no salad with that awful bottled Caesar dressing Mom used to buy on sale and pretend was homemade. Just my family already seated in the living room, like they were waiting for a verdict to be delivered. The house looked exactly the same, but it felt like a museum replica. Too pristine. The couch cushions fluffed, the orchid by the fireplace perfectly in bloom. My photos, ones they hadn't displayed in years, were suddenly everywhere. Me at the science fair, me in high school debate, all of them framed, staged. Properties. Grady was the first to speak. You've been withdrawing money from Dad's retirement fund, he said, sliding a printed bank statement toward me. Orange highlighter circled a few numbers, a forged email trail stapled behind it. I didn't even touch it. You know that's not true, I said. Celeste leaned forward, voice syrupy. And we know about the married man you've been seeing, the one at Banner Hospital. He has a wife and a kid. She tried to come on to my fiancé, too, Grady added. Told me everything. That's a lie, I said louder. Mom flinched at my tone. You've changed, Maribel, she said softly, eyes still downcast. We don't recognize who you are anymore. You never looked hard enough to know me in the first place, I snapped. I wanted to believe this moment had come out of nowhere, but the truth was uglier. A month ago, Celeste had cornered me at Aunt Jenna's baby shower and said, You need to own what you did. She'd meant the spa mix-up. She'd booked Mom's birthday facial on the wrong date, but somehow I got blamed. Celeste demanded I apologize in front of everyone. I did. I stood up, red-faced in front of 24 relatives, and said sorry for something I hadn't done. No one looked at me. No one said thank you. Mom just patted Celeste's hand like she'd handled it with grace. That wasn't even the start of it. Back in college, I'd logged into Grady's online biology portal and submitted his final paper for him. He didn't know the basics of Mendelian inheritance, so I rewrote the entire unit for him. When he got a perfect grade, Dad printed it out and said, Finally, my son's stepping up. A week later, I got flagged by the system for suspicious login activity. The academic committee didn't punish me, but my record was tagged. Grady didn't say a word. Dad stood now, voice flat. We had a long talk. We've decided it's best if you're no longer part of the family trust, and you need to leave. Tonight. My stomach dropped. You're kicking me out? There's a bag packed for you in the hallway, Celeste said, almost cheerfully. It was already there. My old suitcase, the green one with the busted zipper, sitting like a dog waiting to be put down. I stayed up 3 nights writing your thesis, Grady, I said quietly. I gave Celeste my internship slot when she didn't even apply. And you... I looked at Mom. You knew. You always knew. No one spoke. I walked to the hallway in silence, past the framed family portraits, past the unused guest room still set up for Celeste's bridal parties. At the front door, I paused. Then I heard it. A faint rustling in the garage. I turned and followed it. Dad was by the trash bin, closing the lid. I lifted it. Inside was my photo album, the one I made when I was 13. Summer camp, my first microscope kit, a Polaroid with Grandma. Seriously? I asked. He shrugged. Didn't think you'd need it where you're going. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I pulled the album out, opened it, and tore out the last photo, the one where I wasn't cropped out. Then I dropped the rest back in. I'll take what's mine, I said. Outside, the air was thick with desert heat. I drove without aim until the lights of the city blurred into motel neon. Van Buren Road, a room that smelled like bleach and old carpet. The clerk didn't ask questions, just slid the key across the counter. I didn't turn on the lights, just sat on the edge of the bed, still, number, until the weight in my stomach reminded me. I reached into my purse. The test took 3 minutes, 2 lines. I stared at the mirror, not moving. You were the only truth they couldn't erase, I whispered. And for the first time in hours, I felt something like fire return to my chest. The only thing they didn't count on was me having proof. I whispered it aloud as I reached across the passenger seat and popped open the glove box. The motel parking lot buzzed with heat, cicadas, and the hum of someone's window AC unit struggling to survive. My hand found the file instantly, thick, worn, labeled in black marker. Capstone, 2019. Inside were notes, drafts, printed emails, and USB drives held together with an old paperclip. I exhaled slowly and dragged my thumb over the scribbled labels. My name appeared in every email chain. My signature was on every experiment log. Grady had changed the title, changed the font, and added a flashy summary. But the science was mine. I'd built it. I remembered more than just the theft of words. One summer, Grady had asked me to fill in at his biotech internship because he wanted to travel through Colorado with friends. I showed up every day for 6 weeks at the lab, using his ID badge, learning quietly from postdocs, keeping logs in his name. I even saved a contaminated batch of cell samples with a modified buffer I learned in an online form. When the month ended, the lab posted a photo. Intern of the month, Grady Knox. I wasn't in the shot. I wasn't mentioned. Later that fall, when my access to the campus lab got revoked after budget cuts, I found a listing on Craigslist for a used centrifuge and a broken microplate reader. I bought them with my tip money and set them up in the half-rotted shed behind my building. I ran samples at night while the neighborhood dogs barked and the AC compressor stuttered. Grady came by once, took a picture of the setup, and posted it with the caption, "Building the future of health from scratch." Like it was his. I reported him once. I emailed the faculty board with time-stamped files, lab logs, even a screen recording of him presenting slides I wrote. A week later, I got a call from the department chair. He said the Knox family had donated generously to the STEM grant initiative. He asked me, gently, to let it go. "We don't want trouble," he said. "You're smarter than this. I deleted the report. Have you ever discovered that the people who raised you also tried to erase you? The kind of silence that's not innocent, but chosen. If you've ever been kept in the dark by those who should have protected you, leave a comment number 7 below. Now, let's see what she did next. By midnight, I had half a roadmap scribbled across 3 yellow legal pads. I used a cracked mug as a paperweight. My laptop wheezed under the weight of old PDFs and new spreadsheets. I'd typed 3 different names for the company before settling on one. Sawline Bio. Saul, as in son. Line, as in legacy. But this time, the line started with me. At 2 a.m., the power blinked out. I didn't flinch. I lit 2 candles, shoved my noodles aside, and kept sketching. The glow flickered over my diagrams. Outside, someone argued in Spanish down on the sidewalk, their voice muffled by heat and distance. When I couldn't think anymore, I opened my hollowed-out copy of On the Origin of Species. Nestled inside was Grandma's sapphire ring. I hadn't worn it in years. I slipped it on and whispered, "Just watch." The next morning, I walked into the Phoenix Public Library. Not the shiny downtown one with murals and tech bros. The older one, fluorescent lights, quiet desperation. I found a corner seat, plugged in my charger, and logged into the state business portal. Name, Maribel Knox. Title, Founder Company, Sawline Bio, LLC. I hesitated, then clicked Submit. A pop-up confirmed, registration complete. I stared at the screen long enough to memorize the font. I didn't cry. I felt something sturdier. That evening, I uploaded every file from the glove box into a secure drive. I sent a copy to a legal hotline that handled intellectual property abuse. I didn't ask for help. I just filed under. For record. May pursue legal action. When I shut the laptop, I felt taller somehow. I didn't expect the knock. It was soft. 3 taps. Familiar rhythm. I opened the door. Rowan stood there in a wrinkled shirt and dusty boots. His hair is longer than before. Same eyes. "If it's true," he said, "I'm staying." I didn't speak, just stepped aside. He didn't rush in. He waited for permission. I nodded once. We didn't talk about the baby, or the trust, or Celeste. Instead, we walked to a diner nearby, the kind with sticky tables and old jukeboxes that never worked. We sat in silence, side by side in a cracked leather booth. After the waitress dropped 2 coffees without asking, Rowan reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a napkin, and scribbled one word. Together. I stared at it, said nothing, just opened my notebook and wrote at the top of a fresh page. Phase 1, Exposure. Hey, if love requires a signature, it was never love to begin with. That thought hit me just as I stood at their front door again, envelope in hand, eyes dry, soul colder than I remembered. Delora opened the door before I could knock. "Maribel," she said with a warm, too-wide smile, arms already reaching for a hug I didn't return. Her perfume arrived first, strong, flowery, cloying, like she was trying to mask something. "Thank you for coming," she added, stepping aside like this was a visit, not a summons. Inside, nothing had changed, and that was the problem. The living room was spotless, every surface polished within an inch of its life. The coffee table hosted a perfect tray of shortbread cookies and a vase of fresh lilies. Framed photos lined the wall, me in 3rd grade, high school graduation, a blurry shot from a debate tournament. Photos they hadn't displayed in years. Now they were everywhere, like props on a set built to sell the illusion of warmth. There was even a video paused on a laptop in the corner, Celeste's voice crackling from the speakers. "We regret the miscommunication. We love all our children equally. A rehearsed apology. For optics. Celeste sat with her legs crossed, face composed like she was posing for a profile photo. Grady fidgeted beside her, tapping a finger on his knee. Dad stood near the fireplace, arms folded, staring at me like I was late for a performance I hadn't agreed to. I sat without being offered. The tea was already poured. Earl Grey. My favorite. They remembered that now? Celeste slid a thick manila envelope across the coffee table. We've updated the trust, she said lightly, to reflect current realities. I didn't open it. Lorraine reached forward next. There's also a form we'd like you to sign. It's just a legal formality, waiving future claims. For closure, I met her eyes for the first time. Closure for who? No one answered. 2 years ago, during Thanksgiving, I'd wandered into Celeste's guest room looking for a charger and found her laptop still open. A document titled Last Will Revision sat on the screen. I clicked. The list of inheritors showed only her and Grady. My name? Absent. I screenshotted it, printed it. When I brought it up to Mom the next day, she looked away and said, "You probably saw a draft." Last year, Grady had asked me to help him qualify for a startup accelerator that required a female co-founder. "It's just for optics," he said. "We'll remove your name later." I refused. A month later, I saw the signed application, my signature forged, my name listed as Chief Scientific Officer. I emailed the committee demanding my name be removed. They never responded, but the next version went public without me. And that STEM outreach event last spring, the one I organized at Southside High? I built the curriculum, secured the permits, even paid for the snacks. Celeste never showed up. But the Instagram post from Knox Foundation for Women in Science featured her in a lab coat standing in front of a banner that read, "Empowered by Celeste Knox." I wasn't in a single photo. Inside, a notarized cease and desist letter, a copy of my LLC registration, and notice of pending legal review into IP violations committed by Celeste and Grady Knox under my academic work. Celeste flinched. Grady blinked too fast. Dad's jaw tensed. "This won't be settled over tea," I said quietly. "You trained me to be quiet. I trained myself to document everything." No one moved. In the silence, Celeste adjusted the orchids again, fingers twitching at imaginary imperfections. Lorraine stood and walked to the front door. I followed. As she opened it, she gave me a smile so thin it barely registered. "You've made your point," she whispered. "Not yet," I said. As I stepped down the porch, Celeste called after me. "Oh, and Maribel, just so you know, we're launching the Knox Wellness Fund next month. It's for underserved women in STEM. The tagline is, 'Science begins with trust.' The phrase was mine, lifted word for word from the abstract of my thesis. I didn't turn around. Not yet. I built this in silence. Now you'll hear me." The mic stand was a little too high. I adjusted it with one hand while the other rested on the curve of my belly. The projector screen behind me glowed with the first slide. Sawline Bio, Redefining Hormonal Health. I could hear the murmur of the crowd settle into a hush. Flashback. A university pitch event 4 years ago. Grady had asked me to let him take the lead because investors relate better to men. I agreed. Naively. My name disappeared from the final slide deck. He presented my research with confidence he hadn't earned. Our parents applauded like he'd cured cancer. I stood in the wings, invisible in a blazer 2 sizes too big. But today was mine. Exposed brick walls, soft LED lighting, paper coffee cups clutched by restless hands. The downtown co-working space buzzed with caffeine and competition. 50 founders, 10 judges, 1 spotlight. I clicked to the next slide. Today, over 30% of women in rural communities receive delayed diagnoses for hormone-related disorders. I said, what if we could catch imbalances before symptoms begin? I walked them through the science. Clean. Director. My voice is steady. My deck is immaculate. I didn't smile much. I didn't need to. Midway through, a judge leaned forward. Suit, sharp haircut, thin tablet. Sawline, he said. Any relation to Celeste Knox? The Phoenix Gala Foundation is a sponsor today. I let the silence linger. Then, no. I don't have a sister. The air thinned. Have you ever had to cut ties with someone who shares your blood, but not your values? That sharp moment when truth costs you connection, but grants you clarity. If you've stood for that kind of truth, drop a comment number 9 below. Let's see how far I go from here. Rowan sat in the 3rd row, arms crossed. I didn't look at him, but I could feel him there. Solid. Slide by slide, I layered the impact. Test results, user feedback, prototype cost reduction. Each chart is built to scale. Then came the last slide, a side-by-side comparison. On the left, my thesis abstract from grad school, time-stamped. On the right, the mission statement of the Knox Wellness Initiative. Word for word. No commentary, just a quiet click. The room didn't erupt, it inhaled. One judge mouthed, "Wow!" Another typed. The whisper behind me was sharp and low. She just nuked her entire family. Love. My closing line. This isn't innovation by inheritance. This is reclamation by necessity. Applause came slowly. Then a ripple. Then bigger. I stepped down before they could stand. Backstage, I'd been handed a name badge that read, Maribel Knox, co-founder, Knox Wellness Initiative. I stared at it. The volunteer shrugged. It must have been pulled from the sponsor data. I grabbed a plain sticker, wrote in block letters, Founder, sawline bio, and slapped it over the misprint. Rowan didn't say anything. He just handed me a bottle of water and a flash drive, my presentation backup, tucked into a labeled plastic case. He slipped it into my jacket pocket, nodded once, and stepped back. After I stepped down from the stage, before I could fully leave the spotlight, a man in a navy blazer approached. I remembered him. 3 years ago, he rejected my pitch before I even finished it. Told me, find someone to speak on your behalf next time. Now he extended a card. We should talk soon, he said more quietly this time. Seriously. Outside, the event banner flapped in the breeze. Celeste's face, smiling above the tagline, Science begins with trust. My words. Her face. I kept walking. The lot was nearly empty when I reached my car. The red spray paint was loud even in the dark. Backstabber. Under the wiper, a crisp white envelope. Cease and desist. Signed, Celeste Knox. She thought I'd stay silent because we shared blood. She forgot I bled too. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Everything was too white, too polished. The benches are too smooth to grip. I sat beside Fallon Pierce, my attorney. Fallon didn't blink when the opposing team entered. 3 suits and a PR consultant in heels. Celeste followed, in designer cream, sunglasses still on even under fluorescent lights. She didn't look at me. Behind them, Marshall and Lorraine took seats far apart. Not beside Celeste, not beside each other, just apart. Rowan sat 2 rows back. He didn't speak, just nodded once when I turned to glance. Case 2947B, Knox vs. Knox et al., the bailiff announced. Opening statements. Fallon stood. Your Honor, this case is not about family drama. It's about theft. of federally funded intellectual property, misrepresented by public foundations for personal gain. We have evidence of IP misuse, forged authorship, and testimonial backup from an NIH grant officer. Celeste's lead counsel replied smoothly, "We view this as a tragic misunderstanding between relatives." Emotional, yes, but not a criminal. The judge, a sharp woman with hair pulled tight and fingers templed beneath her chin, didn't flinch. Fallon clicked her pen once. I pulled out the USB. A clear plastic stick labeled in my handwriting, "Proof," just in case. The bailiff collected it. They played it on court monitors. The audio was grainy but clear. First voice. "Aunt Regina. If she won't cooperate, we cut her out completely." Second, Celeste. "She always overreacts. Just keep the money and say she never signed?" Then, "My mother. She's not smart, she's stubborn, and we can't control that." I remembered that voice. 12 years old, sitting on the carpet outside the guest bedroom during a birthday brunch. The door hadn't closed all the way. I'd paused there for a moment, clutching a library book. Then I heard it. My mother's voice. Not angry, not loud, just final. She's like her father, too difficult to mold. Back then, I thought maybe she meant I had his curiosity, his stubbornness. Maybe that wasn't a bad thing. But today, in court, it landed like a blade. As the audio played, I watched Celeste's jaw tighten. Not in regret, in calculation. She was measuring PR fallout in real time. Her thumb flicked over her phone screen, trying to control a storm she thought would never come. Fallon didn't flinch. She stood like the ruling was already written in the walls. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that typed the first draft of that thesis, that filed my LLC form, that carried 2 lives now, and in front of me sat 3 people who once told me family meant forgiveness. They had no idea how much I remembered. When Rowan handed me the bottle of water, it was still cold. I hadn't realized how dry my throat was until then. He didn't speak, didn't need to. That silence said, I saw what they didn't. Even outside, when the reporters pushed in, I noticed one thing. My mother turned away. Not from the cameras, from me. She didn't want to be seen as the woman who'd been wrong. She wanted to disappear before the world realized she always had been. The judge didn't blink. I'm issuing a preliminary injunction, she said. Ms. Celeste Knox is barred from representing or benefiting from any entity tied to the plaintiff's work until further notice. A pause. Furthermore, this court finds cause to investigate misuse of federal funding in connection to the Knox Wellness Initiative. No gasp, just the sound of pens stopping. Fallon didn't smile, but I saw her adjust her jacket with satisfaction. As we stood, Rowan walked up and handed me a small bottle of water. Didn't say a word. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Cameras, boom mics. One voice louder than the others. Ms. Knox, anything you want to say to your family? I didn't stop walking, but I said it clearly, number I already did. In court. That night, I got an email from an address I hadn't seen in years. Subject, none. Zell is gone. We're alone now. Dad, no apology, just emptiness. I stared at it for a long time, not because I hoped for more, but because it confirmed what I already knew. Some people think silence is surrender. I was just saving mine for the courtroom. They erased me once, but I built something too real to ignore. The check arrived on a Tuesday. Not $1 million, but enough. Enough to hire the first lab assistant. Enough to move Phoenix Biotech from a shared desk to a small private unit near Camelback Road. I didn't frame the check. I filed it. Quiet victories don't need gold trim. I walked to the mailbox the same afternoon, slipped a copy of the court's injunction into a manila envelope, and mailed it to Fallon's office. I didn't seal it with pride, just completion. Rowan met me at the gate, holding a box. Brown paper, no return address. Inside, a photograph. Me, 10 years old, in a cornflower blue dress. The original version, unedited, not cropped. I was there, off-center, eyes awkward, smile unsure. But I was in it, fully visible, on the back, in neat pen. This is the version that matters. Rowan didn't speak. He didn't have to. That evening, he sat on the couch, scrolling through his contacts one last time. I watched as he deleted them, one by one, a quiet reckoning of ties unworthy of keeping. When he finished, he placed the phone down and turned toward the twins. Leora had fallen asleep with a crayon still in her hand. Leo snored lightly into a book about trees. Rowan covered them both with a shared quilt. Outside, the citrus trees swayed gently in the wind. We'd planted two, an orange tree for Leo, a lemon tree for Leora. Their roots had taken, the soil held. I knelt in the dirt and brushed dust over Leo's sapling. "This one's yours," I whispered. "Your legacy." Tiny shoes sat forgotten near the planter, muddy, worn, staying. I didn't move them. Back inside, I hung my old navy blazer over the back of the lab chair. Before I hung the blazer on the back of the lab chair, I paused. It was the same blazer I wore to my scholarship interview at 17. The one my mother called professional but not feminine. I remembered standing in her doorway that day, asking if I looked okay, and watching her barely glance up from her magazine. I wore it anyway. To every interview, every lab defense, every pitch. That jacket had absorbed failure, sweat, hope. And now I was hanging it up like laying down armor. Not because the war was over, but because I no longer needed protection to feel strong. The lab glowed in warm light. The overheads dimmed. The floor scattered with notes and pipettes. The air smelled faintly of citrus and ethanol. I sat down and opened the final research file, an early-stage compound built for ovarian degeneration. Too late for my mother, but maybe not for someone else. "This," I said quietly, "is for what you never got to be." Later that day, when Rowan handed me the photograph, I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just ran my thumb over the bottom corner, creased and soft like it had been held too long. That photo used to haunt me. The cropped version lived in a frame at my parents' house, my elbow visible, but not my face. I once convinced myself I imagined being there. But this was proof. I had always been part of the picture. When the day of the conference came, they handed me a mic. No co-speaker, no panel moderator, just, "Please welcome our keynote, Dr. Maribel Knox, founder of Phoenix Biotech." My heart didn't race out of nerves. It pulsed from the truth of it. For the first time, no one else was standing in front of my work. And the room didn't just hear me. They listened. 3 days later, I stood on a stage at the Regional Medical Innovations Conference. Only this time, there was no question about whose work it was. No one took the lead. No name was missing. The screen behind me read, "Phoenix Biotech," and the room applauded. The keynote, not the footnote. That evening, just before dusk, my phone buzzed on the windowsill. A text from Noelle Trent, the reporter I'd spoken to months ago. "They're running your interview on primetime. Title, 'The Daughter They Tried to Erase.' Ready?" I looked outside. Leora's swing creaked in the breeze. Leo was chasing shadows, and I breathed. For the first time in years, I wasn't building in reaction. I was just building. The night they erased me from the family, I thought I had lost everything. But now, in a room filled with sunlight and the laughter of 2 children, I realize I didn't rebuild a life. I built a legacy one they can't erase. I've learned this. Family isn't made by blood. It's made by truth and dignity. Those who harm with lies eventually isolate themselves. But those who rise, who choose integrity over silence, will always reclaim what was taken on their own terms. If you've ever been betrayed, ever written out of your own story, write it back in your voice. Leave a comment below if you've ever fought to take your power back. I promise, you are not alone.